Hello and welcome to UC Today. I'm Tom Wright and I'm delighted to be joined by Sean from Smarsh today. How's it going, Sean?
Hi, Tom. Going well, going well. And yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It's great to have you. We've got a really interesting discussion today. We're going to be talking about generative AI, which I think it's fair to say has captured everyone's imagination this year, particularly ChatGPT, and we've got Microsoft Copilot coming down the line as well. So to kick us off, I wonder if you could just explain why this is so talked about at the moment.
Well, I'll go back to when I actually first started playing with ChatGPT. It really opened my eyes. I've been in technology for many, many years, actually since the age of 10, so lots of years. And we've all talked about AI over the years, over the last couple of decades, and it's it's usually been in the sense of it's coming, it's in the future, it's something that we can't wait to see how it's going to look like. Things like the Terminator, that's the imagination running wild. And we all knew it was coming. Things like machine learning have been around for a long time, but true AI was not really there. And then ChatGPT came in, and you start playing with that, and you start realizing we've made some serious strides forward. And when you start using a tool like ChatGPT, which number one is impressive in its output, but also it's just so accessible. And I think that's the primary reason why it's created so much buzz, is because it's not just me who loves tech and who loves these new tools. It's my father who's playing with it, who has no idea how his phone works really. And that's the thing. It's just so accessible for so many age groups, for so many skill levels, and it's absolutely changed the game. And it's getting to the point of being true AI, which is amazing. I think it's in my mind, it's 5, 7 years ahead of where I thought we were.
Yeah, and as you said, it's early days, but I wonder if you've got any kind of examples or any particular use cases that you personally have found it really useful so far.
So many. So a big use case for me, it saves me so much time. And this is before Copilot was introduced. I'll take emails that come in through my Gmail. I'll paste an email into ChatGPT and I'll say, draft a response for me. And inevitably, it's going to draft a great response. And you can make it even better by giving it some prompts just to let it know what your writing style is like, giving it some examples of how you write, that sort of thing. So you have this back and forth conversation with ChatGPT, and then you start pasting in emails and you allow it to then respond. It saves so much time. That's just one use case. And you think about it, if you're doing this from a work perspective, being able to draft those emails and be able to at least get something up and running very quickly without you having to think it through, it's fantastic. But that's what Copilot's bringing in an automated way, without all the hassle of training it up or anything like that. And that is just going to be incredible. I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But that's just one simple use case. Never mind, creating little stories. I do a lot of social media content and using that to help me out with content generation. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so let's broaden this out a little bit then. You're speaking to organizations all the time, particularly organizations in regulated markets. What kind of benefits are you seeing them find from generative AI?
What I just mentioned, absolutely, they'll be able to streamline their work process. So if I take this, obviously I do this from a personal perspective, but if I was going to use this in anger in my work capacity, it would take away so much of the mundane, the repetitive tasks that I do every day. And that's what's going to be coming to these large organizations. But it comes with some challenges as well, right? There is the data privacy aspect that we've got to be concerned with. There's the regulatory aspect that we got to be concerned about, and it's definitely gonna bring a lot of benefits. But we and also these organizations that I work with are being a little cautious, and rightfully so. Any new technology comes along, you've got to understand it 100%. You've got to know what it's doing, where the data is being stored, how it's doing what it's doing, and where's your data going to end up, right? What control do you have? And as much as there are just a number of benefits from that content generation, from coding capabilities, from being able to automate your tasks that you're doing day to day, put together task lists and things like that. you've got to also consider what comes after that, or what's happening with that data. And that's been prime concern, I think, with ChatGPT. We all know there have been a few press articles out there about some of the problems that people have faced with ChatGPT, where some proprietary code has got out into the public because that data that you're putting into ChatGPT, you've effectively agreed to allow that data to be used for ChatGPT to train its models on, which means that data could effectively come out again as well. And if you consider doing that with client data, you are breaching GDPR. You're causing some major problems, potential reputational risk, and potential massive fines. So that's the biggest challenge that I see people facing with this. But it's always like that with financial services and other regulated industries, is that balance between usability, benefits, and then also what are the compliance risks? What are the data privacy risks?
Yeah, I mean, there are some really big points in that answer you just gave, and I think we should dig into some of them a little bit more. But just broadly, we've touched on some of the benefits, and I think there's going to be other benefits coming down the line that we probably can't even imagine yet. But in these sort of early days, what are some of the biggest concerns that you're seeing organizations have, and what should they be concerned about?
Number one conversation that I have is around data privacy. Now, some companies like Azure, Microsoft Azure, are trying to create AI as a service using things like the ChatGPT or the GPT model, GPT-4, GPT 3.5, trying to use that model in a private capacity. They haven't yet convinced companies of how that will actually work and truly where that data is being stored and where it's being processed. So people are still a little bit tentative about that. But that data privacy concern is very real. All we need is one breach. We've all seen in the press about people jailbreaking ChatGPT and being able to get in behind the scenes and get it to do things maybe it shouldn't be doing. What if you're able to jailbreak it and get to a point of asking for certain users information that they've been inputting into the platform? Those are the sort of concerns that companies have. From the regulatory side, well, not just regulatory, I think just from a general perspective, you have concerns around ethical AI. How is this AI actually being trained from an ethical standpoint? What sort of transparency do we have around these AI components? What level of accountability is there? If we're generating content and that content happens to have information in there that we're just saying, well, it must be accurate, right? Because it came from this fancy model, this amazing new service. So we put it out there either into the public or we respond in an email with some of this information. What accountability is there if that data is not actually correct? So there's that concern around that. From the other side, beyond ethical AI, is the bias, right? So AI bias is a real concern. How is that information being trained? The information is being trained, the models have been trained based on articles that are out there. Now, I might have a blog and I might have certain viewpoints, and if it's trained on those viewpoints, then the AI model is going to reflect those viewpoints. I don't have any right or left leaning sort of information out there, but there is a lot of that out there. And if that is what's training these AI models and that's what's coming through in some of the content that's been generated, that could be a real concern as well. So those are two big ones, the ethical AI aspect and also the bias in AI. So yeah, we will see where that goes. But the data privacy is first and foremost. That's number one on people's list, right? We want to know where that data is. How are these models actually working? Where is our data being processed, and where are we going to store that data?
Yeah, and I think it would be interesting to apply some of these points to where Smarsh specializes, which is working with enterprises in highly regulated industries. So it'd be good if you could talk us through what you expect the impact of generative AI to be on these organizations, both the positive and potentially the negative if they don't implement it the right way.
Absolutely. So we'll talk about it from a data perspective. Obviously, Smarsh, we've been working with machine learning models for a very long time to help optimize the way that people do supervision and surveillance from a compliance perspective. Now, we also are a cloud-first product. We use public cloud systems to allow us to scale near infinitely. And from that perspective, if let's say a company A, bank A is going to incorporate something like Copilot. They're going to switch on Copilot today and they're going to start using this, and they see all the benefits. They're able to create presentations automatically, summarize meetings automatically, create draft responses to emails automatically. All these things that are going to be such time savers. But straight away we can see this is generating content, right? Now, regulated industry, especially financial services, have a responsibility to capture all this information, especially if you're doing it from a regulated individual's perspective. So if we now need to capture all this content, you effectively are employing another employee for each employee that is going to be using this. And that is generating data based on this new employee that you have. And that data needs to be stored. Now, if your systems cannot accommodate this surge of data, because we know data is growing every day anyway, but this just takes it to a whole nother level. You need to make sure your platform is able to scale, like a platform like Smarsh, right? I mean, we are cloud-based because we saw things like this coming. We might not have seen ChatGPT in the front of us, but we definitely knew that data is growing. But you need to make sure that you can account for this data, that you can store this data, but then more importantly, that downstream, you can actually manage this data. If you need to, from a compliance perspective, monitor what sort of information is going out there, whether it is being generated by AI or partially generated by AI, you need to be able to still monitor for this information and where it's going. Identify if it has been written by AI. That's going to be important in the future, I think. Number two, you're going to be having to monitor for all the things you're monitoring for today, treating customers fairly, anti-money laundering, LIBOR scandal, right? I mean, that's out the window now. But the new LIBOR scandal, what the new things that are coming down the line are, and be able to monitor for those things in a way that is still speedy and efficient is going to be hugely important. And that's where we focus on, right? Whether you are a smaller firm generating gigabytes of information per day, or a larger firm generating petabytes of information every week, we are there to accommodate that. And that's all the advice I can give, whether you come to Smarsh for advice, or whether you come to Smarsh to look at our incredible platform. Whatever you do, make sure that whatever platform you are on, whatever platform you're deciding to use, that platform is able to scale with you. And whatever amount of data you think is going to be generated, multiply that by 10, right? Because we have no idea. Like you say, we don't know what the future what the future is. I didn't see something like ChatGPT coming down the line. So what's the next thing? What's going to happen in the next 6 months? What's going to happen in the next year? Make sure that whatever platform you're using to archive your communications information can scale along with whatever changes might be coming in the future.
Yeah, so there really is a lot to think about, and we've spoken a lot about regulation, but I don't think you can do that without talking about the regulators themselves. So what are you hearing coming from the regulators about this technology?
I got to be honest, I have been hugely impressed with the response that the regulators have had to things like ChatGPT coming along and suddenly just creating this whole new world around AI. They were already assessing AI as something to be concerned about, something that their clients, i.e. the banks, are interested in. Towards the back end of last year, they started a process where they were looking for feedback from the banks around what their concerns are around AI, that sort of thing. And there was a document that was released a couple months back now, actually stipulating, the results of that survey that they put out there and giving some guidance around what are the implications around current regulations. So I would recommend going and having a look at that. The FCA have it on their website, and the UK government actually have it on their website as well. But the results are interesting. Effectively, it comes down to your responsibility doesn't change. You still have a responsibility to, number one, capture all communications and all this data. You have a responsibility to make sure that you're treating customers fairly. And you have a responsibility to assess these products. Any products you're going to take on board and start using within your firm, make sure you understand what it's doing. Make sure you understand where that data is being stored. If the data's been stored in the US, you've got a bit of a problem, really, from a data privacy perspective, right? Same thing if it's been stored in China, or if the data happens to be accessible outside of the UK or outside of the EU. You need to know all these things, and that's effectively what the guidance is that is coming along from the regulators. I don't see any new regulation necessarily coming in directly from the perspective of financial services institutions, but there will be things like the AI Act, which is an EU directive that's coming through, and we should see that coming out very soon, hopefully. You can read all about that on online. Just do a search on AI Act. It's quite interesting. It's more about AI risk and being able to kind of set levels as to what type of risk a certain AI might introduce. Like if it has facial recognition, there's a certain privacy risk there, right? If it's something that's going to help you, optimize what tickets are being suggested to you for the next concert, that's a lower risk. So the AI Act is looking to do that, and obviously it goes far more in depth than that. So just keep an eye open for all these things. But from the regulators' perspective, from the FCA, they really are on top of it. And I think we're going to see more guidance coming from them over the years. There's lots of great articles from them on the topic, and they have been for the last 6 months or so. So just keep an eye on that. But I'm keeping a close eye, and if we talk again in the future, I'm sure I'll have a different answer. But for now, just keep doing what we've been doing and just keep abreast of the changes that are coming.
Great. So I've just got a couple more questions for you, Sean. I think it'd be nice to wrap up everything we've been talking about. And I wonder if an organization came to you and said, we really want to use generative AI in an effective and secure and compliant way. What would be your advice to them to get the ball going?
I'll say it again. Understand number one, understand what you're trying to do. What do you want to get from it, right? Understand what is available out there from an AI perspective, right? We all know about generative AI, but generative AI, it could mean a lot more than just creating an article, responding to emails. It does a whole lot more: image generation, even voice generation, right? You could be using these tools for answering phone calls from a customer services perspective. We're going to see so many changes around that. Now, once you understand what the tool is, what tools you would like to embrace, how it's going to optimize processes for you in your company, that's when you start looking at companies like ourselves that are future looking. We are there to help you maintain your governance around your information and make sure that you are speaking to somebody that knows what they're talking about in terms of the data that's been generated and the responsibilities around that data. And again, it's something I've said already, but it is that important. Make sure that whatever product you're going to be using for a compliance purpose, like what we're talking about from a Smarsh perspective with our archiving and supervision and surveillance tools, make sure that it's able to scale with your data. Make sure it's able to scale not only with what you're currently doing today, but also with what's coming in the future around AI and whatever other tool comes out in the future that you're going to embrace and use. Because it's not just about optimizing your workflow at work and helping your employees be more productive. It's also about downstream, helping your compliance teams keep on top of their responsibilities as well. Because compliance teams, their budgets aren't growing infinitely. They aren't getting new employees every time there's a new tool that's out there. They're having to, a lot of the time, do more with less, right? So make sure that you have a tool that helps you do that more without having to spend too much more, without having to implement too much more, without having to bring in place more employees. So that's kind of the approach that I take. And of course, 100% have a chat with us at Smarsh. We're doing this every day. We're looking into this. We've got some amazing things coming down the line on the AI piece as well from our tools perspective. But we already are talking to clients and helping clients that are going with an AI first mentality to actually embrace these new tools in a compliant manner.
And you've actually led me quite nicely into my final question, which is a little bit unfair, given we both said who knows where this could go. But if you get the crystal ball out, maybe even ask ChatGPT, what do you think is coming down the line for this technology over the next few months?
Well, we've talked briefly about Copilot, right? That's not out yet. Nobody's using it unless you're in a beta somewhere. But that's coming out, and that is going to be such a game changer. Many people know roughly what it is. They've seen the presentation that Satya Nadella gave from Microsoft, CEO, the presentation showing just how amazing this tool is. But I've had a taste of some of the functionality that it provides, and it is going to be such a game changer. It's going to free up a lot of time. It's going to automate a lot. Consider this. You go to a meeting, you and I, let's say we're having this meeting here, and when we hang up the phone, automatically in my calendar, I have a meeting set up to follow up because we happen to mention that we need to talk about this again. I automatically have a meeting follow up in my calendar for next week at a time that works for both of us because, Copilot decided it could check both of our calendars and found a good time. It summarized what we talked about during this meeting. It created action items. It then also listed out what we agreed on and what we disagreed on and what things we need to still come up with that's going to solve some of the issues we discussed. It's going to automatically do all that. And that's a time saver. That's an hour or two work that has been taken away from you that you don't even have to think about. And when I get on the next meeting, it's going to give me a summary of what this meeting's about. That sort of thing is fantastic. And that's around the corner. That's coming very soon. But I think beyond that, beyond these tools like Copilot, and also Google has Duet AI, which is the same concept. I'm already using tools like Zapier, which allows workflow automation. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. People and tools already provide a lot of open APIs that allow you to do some very cool things. Being able to connect up, your Gmail with, Ticket Hub. We were talking about tickets earlier. Being able to connect all that up and then connect it up to your bank maybe and automate an entire process there. You don't even have to go and stand in line, in a virtual line waiting for a ticket to come on sale. It's going to do it all automatically for you, right? That sort of thing I think is where we're going with this. Some of the more clever and impressive stuff, we're already seeing image generation, but we're going to see a lot more video generation, right? It's a bit of a worry for me because if we consider some of the meetings we have, how many times are we going to have, maybe I'm a bit busy today, so I don't have time to jump on a video call with you. I'll just let my avatar come on there. You won't have a clue that it is my avatar because my voice will be generated by AI and my visual will be generated by AI. And you'll be having a conversation with an AI bot that's going to take notes from me and tell me after the meeting what it was all about. That's scary stuff, but it's coming. It's already possible today. It's not entirely accessible to everybody, but it's possible. That's where I think it's going. That's some of the scary stuff. But yeah, I think this automation, tools like Copilot and Duet AI, that's just going to be a complete game changer. By the end of this year, there'll be a lot of front runners that'll be using it, and we'll start hearing a lot more about it. By end of next year, I think it'll be just commonplace. Like once email wasn't very common, people didn't really know how to use it. But now everybody knows what email is. Everyone knows how to use it. I think Copilot's going to be adopted a lot quicker than that. And we're going to be using these tools, this sort of automation in our everyday life, whether it's corporate world, personal life. I think we're going to be using that day to day by the end of next year very easily.
Yeah, as you said, I think it's both scary and exciting. And I dare say if we have this conversation in another 3 months, things will have moved on a huge amount. But in the meantime, Sean, it's been great talking to you. I hope we can have this conversation again and see how things develop. It's exciting, but also scary. And organizations have to make sure they do it in a secure way. So I think speaking to you again in the future would be fantastic. But thanks for your time today.
My pleasure. It's been great talking. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and a share on social media, and we'll see you next time.